Reese messing around in class, I'm going to call her by her brother's name, which she'll hate, but I'll get her attention right away. And so we do enjoy having those families that we're familiar with, that we know, and we love getting into your kids' lives. I can't tell you how excited we are and happy to be here in the building. It's not just parents being able to kick their own kids out of the house, okay? We know that, we get it. I would teach my classes last spring, and then I'd go help my own children, and so we fully understand that. But the whole reason that we are in the career that we have chosen is because we love getting into the lives of kids, and it was so hard to continue that in the spring. I can't imagine what it would have been like if last September things had been shut down. Like, try to get to know your class and introduce yourself for the first time via Zoom. And so even in that, to have the blessing of 3 quarters last year before we had the shutdown was great. And so to be here tonight, to be able to have a back to school night in the building, to have already gotten our first 4 days with the kids, we're excited about that. And the thing is, and you all probably saw the letter from Roger, things are changing. It's fluid. And we're going to do our best to continue to be able to be at the school in person teaching your children. My own child is a 5th grader, my oldest, Ian, and my wife and I were talking today, just the conversations that Ian's saying are happening in the classroom, even 6 feet apart, that they didn't get last spring. And so we are excited to be able to continue to do this. We're going to continue to ask for your help as parents, reminding the kids these are the rules that we have set up to be able to continue to be in the classroom. And so thank you already for how you shared with your kids the change that's coming tomorrow. We will be instituting the mask breaks 2 to 3 times a class. We will be having the kids pull their masks down at a 6-foot distance to get that fresh air, to make sure that we're not getting a little loopy, from rebreathing our own air, but they will be in moments when they are 6 feet apart. And in the middle school, we've already been doing that. They're 6 feet apart all the time, unless we're having them specifically working on a project. And if they are working on a project together, they're masked up, and we are setting a timer, because we've been told by the CDC, 15 minutes of being within 6 feet is kind of that you've been officially exposed. And so we're taking that seriously, and we're setting that timer for 12 to 14 minutes. You have your group time, and we're going back to that individual time. I did it today in my class. We were doing this fun little getting into Bible class, and the idea of, do you know all the 66 books of the Bible? And I had a fun little word search that they did, and I gave them a few moments to work with one another, and they were excited to be able to sit close to one another. Like, we're following the rules, and we're still going to be next to each other and be able to converse and not be from 6 feet apart. But those group discussions are still happening. And that class dynamic of them being able to work with their peers is fantastic to be able to see, for us to be able to institute. And so we just thank you ahead of time for all the help you're going to do this year to make sure that we can continue to be in class. So I'm Mr. Wilkinson, this is Mrs. Allen, and I've already spoken up, so I'll let her go ahead and start us off with our slideshow.
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to say, so I am Melanie Allen. Some of you met Mr. Wilkinson last spring, and I was visiting my kids in Phoenix. They go to GCU, and they're back on campus, which is awesome. So hello, and thank you for coming. Yeah, I am thrilled to be back. I just want to echo what Mr. Wilkinson said, and I told the kids today, no matter what our opinions or our perspectives are, at the end of the day, it's really about obedience. So we're just being obedient. And the kids, I have to tell you, your kids, you've done a fantastic job with them with all of this. I mean, they're rolling with it. They have no problems putting their mask on. Even with the news of we've got to wear our masks more than we have been in the past couple of days, they didn't seem disheartened. I mean, your kids would say, the worst thing about school right now is having to wear a mask. If that's the worst thing about school, then thank you, Jesus. Because sometimes they say some other things. So we're happy about that. Yeah, you know what, I have every intention, I mean, already in our classrooms, when they're sitting in their seats, we've got them spaced out. You know, we're following regulation. And I told the kids, look guys, I try to keep if I'm doing direct instruction, I always try to keep to about 12 to 15 minutes. Sometimes I have them time me because I kind of push it because I get pretty, because I get excited. Imagine that. And I said, if you're having a mask break while I'm giving you instruction, as you're sitting at your desk, that's one of our mask breaks. So, and that's kind of what we're already doing. Because when they get up to start doing activities together, they're already putting their masks on because you've already trained them that way. So it is what it is, and we're back in the building, and we're just happy. So it's perspective. So one of the beautiful things about being back in the building is that it is about relationship. So especially in middle school, there's so many changes that happen. Our job is, okay, we're partnering with you. That's the first thing. This is the partnership, and I sense that and I feel that. I always feel that from our parents, and I hope you feel that from us. But it's coming alongside the kids, and it's having that relationship and those conversations with them when they're struggling with hard things. Most of the time it's relational. They're struggling with friends, dynamics. It's just difficult. Changes. Sometimes there's family stuff that's going on. If we've developed enough of a relational piece during, say, the girls and I have accountability every other week, and the boys with Mr. Wilkinson, the girls are able to start opening up about some things, and it's mentorship, which is awesome. So that's a big part of what we do with regards to just transforming hearts and preparing minds. Those of you who have been in Northwest, you know that walking with Jesus is not something you do on Sunday. This is something that's a part of our being. It's a part of our DNA. That we want to know the Father. We want to live that. That is who we are. And that's what we want to model for our children. That's what we want to teach them. And that's about getting into the messiness of life. And where does God intersect with the messiness? That's kind of the transforming of the heart. And it's a lifelong process, isn't it? Kind of starts now.
So the subjects that I teach Bible, history, math, and PE. And what Mrs. Allen was talking about, if you're new to the school, it's great because Bible is integrated in everything that we do. It's not just spoken in my Bible class, and then Mrs. Allen isn't allowed to talk anything about God in science or in history. So it's great because it's all day long. In Bible class, we're going to go through a book that each of your students will receive for them to keep. It's kind of a worksheet book. I was a youth pastor for 5 years before I became a teacher, and my big push in being a youth pastor was taking what God says we're supposed to do and showing them what the world says is kind of the opposite of that. And just being real with the kids and saying, listen, you may see on TV or in the news or from some friends, this is what they believe, and this is how they go about things, and this is what God says about it, good or bad. And so we do a lot of compare and contrast. And so we go through a book called Wise Up, where we will take every week a different topic. Some of those things that Mrs. Allen was mentioning. What is your relationship with your siblings, with your parents, with your peers? We take a walk through Galatians 5:22 and the fruits of the Spirit. What does it mean to have joy, kindness, patience? Self-control is a huge one in middle school, as you guys are probably finding out, either for the first time or the fifth time. Self-control is a big issue, and so we get to spend a lot of time talking about those and having real conversations in Bible class. There'll be a weekly memory verse that goes along with what we're talking about, that they will be memorizing, and then they will be showing to me that they get it, that they memorized it. We'll talk about it throughout the week. In history class, we get to do ancient civilizations, and so this is great because so much of it rolls right in with the Old Testament. We get to do some really fun stuff looking at ancient Israel, looking at ancient Egypt and Greece and Rome, and taking a bunch of those stories in the Old Testament and saying this is what the rest of the world was doing when this was written. One of the big ones that I love with the kids is we get out of VeggieTales and start looking at what the Bible says, all right? Slapping you with a fish, slapping you with your fish, or, yeah. What was it? Esther. We do Esther. I do. So just to preface this, I'm saying this about VeggieTales, and your kids will come home and say we watched the VeggieTales video. We do watch one during the year. We watch Esther, but they get sent off to the island of perpetual tickling versus versus Haman being hung on the very gallows that he prepared for the Jews. And so we get real. When I was a kid, the story of David and Goliath ended with Goliath getting hit in the head. Right, my little flannel board that I had in my Sunday school, but we talk about the real stories and what really happened. And we have fun with the story of Jonah, because we study the ancient people group, the Assyrians, who were in charge of the world, and Assyrian had Nineveh as their capital city, and so we really talk about the human experience of the Bible stories. It's easy, if we're honest sometimes, to think, listen, if I was walking in the desert, and I saw a bush that was on fire, but wasn't being consumed, there's no way I wouldn't believe in God. and follow him. It's easy for us to sometimes look back and say, how did people in the Old Testament mess up? Like you're walking and talking with God and you mess up somehow. But we look at the humanity of it. And so we look at Jonah and we see him buy a ticket to go 2,500 miles in the opposite direction. It's because the king of Assyria was known for cutting your head off and putting it on a stake with a sign above it at the front gate saying, this is a guy who disagreed with me. And so for God to tell Jonah, go cry out against the king of Assyria when he's ruling the known world, it got real for Jonah. And his humanity, he kind of just stepped aside and I can't do it this time. And so he runs away. And so we take that story while we're looking in history and we get to talk about the Bible story and we talk to the kids. Now listen, there may be times you've already done this. And what does it mean? And look at how God still blesses Jonah and gives him that next opportunity and teaches him through these lessons. So it's fantastic to send the Bible throughout everything that we do.
And most of the, from being 5-6 years in school, and especially if you've been a Northwest Christian, you know that much of what we do integrates. And so Mr. Wilkinson is speaking of, he's got some history throwing in there, he's got some Bible throwing in there, he's going to integrate. And so I do the same with science and English. Those are my two primary subjects. We both teach math. We break the kids up into on-level math, which we'll talk about that in just a moment. That just essentially means kiddos that are just right where they should be, according to their math and according to their teacher's assessment. It doesn't mean that they're low or struggling in math. It just means they're right at 6th grade level. And then Mr. Wilkinson's going to take those kiddos that just have that natural ability for number sense and they're manipulating numbers in their head and they need to go a little bit further. And he's got the advanced math kids. So we're both teaching math. But with English and science, the neat thing is I'm teaching physical science this year. So it's all about force and motion and energy. We do a flight unit. The neat thing about it is it doesn't matter what aspect of science we study. We consistently see God's orderly and creative nature. We have these enduring understandings. These enduring understandings are big ideas that thread through everything we're doing. We see evidence of these things. Our enduring understandings begin in kindergarten and then move all the way up through high school. For me, in science, God is creative, He is orderly. I see evidence of that in things like the structure of an atom, the structure of a cell, how pieces fit together. There is chaos. It looks like there's chaos, but if I really break it down, I can find some sense of order. That is evidence of our Creator. I have the kids take the perspective of the defense. If someone tells you there's no God, is there a way to use our scientific knowledge that God has revealed to show evidence of divine creation? Yes, there is, absolutely. I don't see how you can look deeply into science, right, Mrs. Lindsay, and not see order, and not see consistency. Mrs. Lindsay is our biology teacher at the high school.
Well, yeah, chemistry, biology, physics.
All of it. She's all of it. So she sees the top end of it. So you have your enduring understandings as well, and they're going to be consistent with mine. So the kids will continually be looking at those. God is revealer. God is source. He's a provider. These are things that we know, and we can find evidence of those things. In science, it's all over the place. So consistently, we're coming back to that piece of it. No, I'm not teaching Bible. I don't have to teach Bible. I'm looking at who He is, what He does, and the evidence all around us through science. It's awesome. STEM elective. I want to hit on that real quick. I teach, my STEM elective rotates from year to year. Your kids will have electives for the next 2 years, this year, next year, and then it looks a little different for 8th grade. But each of your kids will rotate by quarter through 4 electives. We have world cultures. We have my STEM. They will go to art, and they will go to outdoor ed, outdoor ed-ish. It's got some other variations. We are doing something really cool this year. I'm starting the first Northwest Christian, we're kind of calling it a community garden. It's something Tim Hansen and I have kind of dreamed of for years now. We've always wanted to do a greenhouse, but it's a little out of reach right now. So we're starting with just some raised garden beds. So many of your kids that are in STEM elective right now, they're actually in just the groundwork of planning, of coming up with a material list. They've done some measurement. It's going to be right outside my window because that's the highest exposure all day. It's the hottest. We have the hottest room in the whole property. I'm convinced of it. So they're getting things ready. They're going to be doing we're going to do a compost collection. Some of the girls, I don't know if any of them told you about it, but they've got this idea for compost for cookies. That's their big idea.
Clarice was working on it. She was talking
Compost
about
for cookies.
Yeah.
I know, it's crazy, but they're gonna take little bins around all the classrooms over the next couple of weeks, and they're gonna collect garbage, compost. We're gonna collect some things from, leaves and grass clippings, and we're gonna create some layers. It's gonna be just really a lot of fun. That's secondary. What we should be doing, we are doing, is robotics. So that's kind of our rotation. So most of the STEM kids will be doing mostly robotics, but right now, it's the season to build and start the layers. So they're doing a lot of that. They will do robotics as well. Okay, moving on. Okay, so reading, that's part of me. With English, English is broken down into, I break it to literature study, which would be literary analysis, informational text, which is how do we tackle textbooks? How do we tackle information that's new learning? Reading skills with regards to that. I use a tool called Newsy LA. Don't want to get too deep into that, but I'm hoping your kids will show you. That's part of what they'll be doing on Wednesdays, remote Wednesdays, is they'll be on Newsy LA and reading informational text articles. And it adjusts to Lexile. It gives me amazing detail of what skills they're struggling with, what skills they're mastering. I'm able to kind of hone our reading skill instruction with Newsy LA data. Okay, so that's reading, and then I'm going to get up to writing in just a moment. Yep, there it is. Okay, so breaking up into 4 strands really for English language arts. So we've got reading, which consists of literary analysis, informational text, and then for my writing, I've got language skills, and then I've got writing skills, which they all kind of intertwine. You may not want to know any of this. Maybe you want to know all of it. I don't want to bore you too much. How about if I just say, if you want to know more about what I'm doing for writing, let's talk after. There? Okay. Okay.
So again, there's a little look at what we do with Bible, with the Proverbs, some examples of what we'll be talking about through the year. For the most part, we'll have a discussion out of that Wise Up book every week. Every once in a while, if we're really deep in a history project, an assignment, we might take a couple of days off of Bible and really be able to focus on that history assignment. But just again, a couple of the examples of what we'll be talking about in Bible. And then with history, one of the cool things that we started doing the last couple of years, and Mel and I have been teaching, this is our 4th year together. What we've done is, I don't know if you've ever thought about what it must be to be an English teacher and to have all of your students write papers all at the same time and turn them in and try to do that 4 or 5 times.
36 students.
So making sure that all of those different types of writing that your students are being introduced to them. And so what we did a couple of years ago is I actually take 2 of the writing assignments. And so I take that off of Mrs. Allen's plate, and they'll do writing assignments in my history class. They'll have one actually coming up next month. It's a real great assignment. We start out our year in history with a maps unit, just kind of reviewing some things about maps, how to read them, where the maps come from, how they've been important in our world. The kids get a kick out of it because if it wasn't for a map being wrong, Christopher Columbus would have never set off to go find spices because he thought the globe was a third smaller than it really is due to the maps that were out at the time. And so we do a little map unit. We end it with a timeline discussion about what timelines are. And we talk about some major historical events that have happened in the lives of your parents, their aunts and uncles, and they will actually be interviewing a loved one and finding out what they remember from an event. Tomorrow's 9/11. And so all of us can recall exactly where we were, the emotions that we had, the feelings that we had that day, that night. I remember 2 months later when we watched President Bush throw out the first pitch at the World Series, and he essentially in my mind said, "Bring it on, guys. I'm in an open stadium and here I am, we're the United States." And so those emotions and those feelings that we have, I was 5 years old and 3 days. I just had my 5th birthday when Mount St. Helens erupted, and I lived on the west side, and I watched the cloud grow and grow. And we had been discussing weeks ahead of time of the mountain's making some noises and it's making some rumblings. And Mr. Truman that owned the lodge up on Still Lake, he just was not gonna leave. And so I remember asking my parents, did he ever get out? And they told me he didn't. And then we look at the science of what happened with Mount St. Helens. I was in my class and my teacher had rolled in a TV on a stand, one of those big tube TVs, and they put them on the stand, he rolled it in, and I watched live the Challenger explode. And I remember looking back at my teacher, not understanding what's going on, but she's just bawling. And so to make sure that our kids understand the history that you all have lived in, that your parents have lived through, even great-grandparents sometimes, there's some fantastic stories that come out. I had a kid a couple years ago came, I was geeking out. Kid came a couple years ago and said, Mr. Wilkins, I got a present for you from my grandmother. And it was a piece of the Berlin Wall. I was like, dude, this is awesome. And then another one brought in a picture of his grandmother, and she had marched with Dr. King. Her and her boyfriend, they were like 17, 18 years old. They decided to get up one day, and there was a march only a couple 100 miles away. They drove, they marched with Dr. King. They sat down in a circle and sang with Peter, Paul, and Mary. And the kids don't know what's going on, but I remember Puff the Magic Dragon when I was a kid and watching those guys. And so it's a great assignment. They're going to interview a loved one. They're going to have the emotional side, and then we do research side on the events to be able to put that together into a paper. And they write that paper, and then they do a presentation to be able to share with their classmates. So the integration isn't just that Bible's in every class, but we're integrating our two classes as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I did mention science already. Science fair is the one that you want to know about. Your kids will do most of science fair here at school. The only thing you'll have to maybe assist with would be possibly the board. It's not a big deal. I literally walk them through every single step of science fair. It starts, I introduced it the last week of January. We're working on it all through February. Science fair is usually the second Thursday in March. I'll email you that information. Don't worry. It's not going to be a stress, I promise.
And speaking of science fair, just another thing to let you know how we run our classroom and how we run the 6th grade. We communicate on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. We're not two islands separated from one another. I know exactly what she's doing each week. She knows exactly what I'm doing each week. And science fair is a bear. It is a grind. And so when the kids are doing it, I'm aware of that, and we're doing a lot of just in-class stuff. And so you may see just homework from one teacher for a little while, and just know that it's not that I'm taking the day off. We're just doing stuff in class so that focus can be. And this is the other way around. They're writing a big paper for me, then Mrs. Allen's aware of that, and she's kind of making sure that she's just doing stuff in class and not sending a lot of stuff home.
Yeah. So math, go ahead and just take the time afterward to speak to your student's math teacher, your child's math teacher. Some of your students have Mr. Hansen, and then most of them have either Josh or myself. So I think the only thing that I want you to know from my perspective, if your child has me, Mrs. Allen, for math, is that we do not want to put any more tech on you. We know it's already overwhelming. You come off of this old kerfuffle last spring. I will tell you that there's just one for math. I do use Khan Academy. My intention is on Wednesdays when they're remote, and I just introduced them to it today, just so that they're familiar with it. They have their accounts, their login information. It's all in their OneNote notebooks, which I'll tell you about in just a minute. They will always have Khan Academy assignments just on Wednesday, because I can take a grade from it. I can reinforce what I've already taught, and it's gonna be. I like it. I used it a lot last spring. It worked really well. So that's all for math that you'll need to worry about. And you can speak to me then if you would like more information about kind of what math is looking like for your on-level kiddo, okay? Is that good? Okay. Don't want to take too much time on that. I just missed electives, but let's not, because we talked about it already. This is what we really want to spend a little time on, because we know that, again, it's the technology piece. I want to preface this before we give you a little bit we dig in a little bit on this one. I just want to tell you, our intention is, if your child is absent for any reason at all, even if they have the sniffles, if I have a student out of my classroom, I will be recording my lesson for that day. Josh will be recording. We will be uploading the link to the LMS, the Learning Management System. I'm going to show you that in just a minute. So this is what's beautiful. In the past, your child's absent, man, what did I miss? What did I miss? It was the bane of my existence because, oh man, absent work. I mean, how do I recreate everything I did today for a student that's been absent? Now it's not a problem because I'm just gonna, if we're gonna use Teams for recording, I'm actually recording right now for Mr. McPherson who had to work tonight. And I'll just stick it right on the LMS. So we wanna tell you a little bit about RenWeb and the LMS. Are you all familiar with RenWeb? Okay, 5th grade teachers did a pretty good job. Now those of you that are new, just hang with us because we're gonna get you caught up with RenWeb. So RenWeb is our grade management system. The beautiful thing is that I put my grades in RenWeb by the end of every week. Sometimes I'm putting them in instantaneous, but I try to get my grades updated. My goal is within 2 days after the assignment has been the due date of it. Then if not, for some reason, I'll try to get it in, everything's in by the end of the week. Sometimes I may need the weekend depending on how the week's gone. So by Sunday. So my promise to you is that I try to keep my grade books updated so that you are always aware of where your child is. If you see a red M, that means missing. That's what your alert should be. Oh, great, you have a missing assignment. Your child's either going to tell you, no, Mom, I turned that in. And then you're going to say, but I know Mrs. Allen uses OneNote for everything because her classroom's pretty much paperless. So that means that it's in your OneNote notebook folder. And then they'll look at the page and realize, oh, I didn't do my discussion questions for literature this week. Huh, funny how that happens. So it's built in. I guess I don't want to overwhelm you too much right now with all the technology because I feel like I could. Maybe I should just tell you right now, RenWeb for grades, LMS for keeping track of assignments. I'm going to show you that right now. OneNote, because our classrooms are pretty much paperless because we hate paper because our students lose it all the time. So we train them how to use digital notebooks. You all know that we're one-to-one devices. So each one of your students has a laptop that's assigned to them that stays at school, or you allowed them to bring their own device, which is great. So they have their OneNote notebook. It's basically like if I gave them a science binder of information and handed that to them, that's what my OneNote is for every subject. So your child, they're going to get really familiar with it and they can show you their OneNote if you would like them to, all their digital notebooks.
And I encourage you to do that. The next couple of days, the kids are already getting into it. Those who aren't familiar are learning how to get into their LMS, are learning how to access their OneNote. And just ask your child, hey, show me your OneNote. Show me LMS. My 5th grader is in my advanced math class this year. And so last night, I asked Ian to sit down and show my wife how OneNote works. Because all of my math assignments are on there, all of the notes that we do each day are all on OneNote, so I can't get this excuse anymore that I left my book at school, and so they're able to do the math at home. And so he sat down and I kind of, act like I wasn't listening, just to hear what his presentation was, and it was great. And my wife understood what was going on. And so in the next couple of days, take a moment, sit down with your child and say, hey, can you show me, Mr. Wilkinson and Mrs. Allen mentioned the LMS. They mentioned the OneNote. Show me what you're doing on there. How does it work? And it's a great opportunity for them to present to you so that you understand what's going on, and then it also gives them the encouragement of understanding it themselves and being able to reteach it.
And the other nice thing is with OneNote, because everything that I use, all of my resources are in my notebook. If you're curious about what we're doing in class, because your middle schooler will start telling you that, what'd you do at school today? Nothing? Yeah. You can prove otherwise. You can look in our notebooks and say, oh, it looks like you're working on, and you can see all of our pages that we've been working on. So everything's in there. You guys have full access to everything that happens in our classroom because you have OneNote. So that's pretty awesome on your kids' devices, or they can access it at home. Tomorrow will be the day that I will train the kids on LMS. The 5th graders from last year, Hughesland and Young, they know how to use it, right? They were trained. They're familiar. I want to make sure everybody's on the same page. I just want to give you a quick flyover. Right now, we're looking at my OneNote. This is, my LMS. This is my teacher page. That's why it looks a little bit different. So all of my classes are up there. What Josh and I really want to show you, though, is that if you click on the little bars off to the left-hand side, oh, by the way, just so you know, if I go back to, when you log on to RenWeb, you're all familiar with this page unless you're new, right? Okay, everybody familiar with this page unless you're new? Have you been on RenWeb? I'll say 5th grade parents, have you been on RenWeb? I know, Mrs. Cordes, I know you have. Mrs. Carey, I hope you have.
Can we use the app the same, because I have, yeah.
I want to tell you that RenWeb has done away with the app, but what you can do is you can get on the website and you just do a right click on your phone. What is it? No, there's a save as onto your, onto your home screen.
Okay.
So just do that and it works the same. So you do need to, as a parent, you need to get on RenWeb. This is where you pay your tuition. So when you go on to northwestchristiannwcs.org, there's a RenWeb link for you. All of you need to be on there. That's important. Please put that link on your phone so that you can easily click on there and see your kids' grades so that there are no surprises. Because honestly, we kind of stopped babysitting in 6th grade. We kind of believe in the philosophy of this is the time we need to start letting the kids sink a little bit so that they can learn how to swim because they're going to be in high school in 3 years. So we kind of start letting go of the reins. With that said, you as parents probably still need to keep hold of the reins a little bit. That means you're going to not be telling them you're checking up on their grades, but you're still going to be checking up on their grades, okay? So get the RenWeb app, not the app, but get it on your phone, shortcut. When you're here, if you click on the little kind of the waffle looking thing, and you click here on the LMS, this will take you to your child's page of assignments. From here, it's going to open another page for me. I would say the easiest view for you is going to be from the calendar. So if you click on those 4 bars, and you click on the calendar, we have color-coded and coordinated our subjects. So if your child has Hanson for math, it's still going to be red, okay? This looks different again because right now you're looking at my block 1 and my block 2. So today we did a project, actually the past couple days, we've been doing a project called Apple Annihilator.
So the cool thing is, and what the kids are going to learn, if they go straight to that calendar, they're going to get at least a week's view of saying, okay, I got all this stuff coming up. What we're trying to do is continue to teach your children or show them all the different ways that they might be a great leader and have them figure out for them, our learner, have them figure out what the best way is for them to learn. So we're going to introduce them to a bunch of different ways to take notes. And every year, I show the traditional outline that we may have learned as a kid, Roman numeral 1, capital A, hated it as myself. Every year I get 1 or 2 kids who are like, this is the best thing ever. And that's what they want to do. But we got other ways of taking notes and writing stuff down. And so we're continuing to try to help your children become the best learner they can and take those tools with them. And so to go from that calendar then, it allows them to see the entire week ahead, and then clicking on it takes them right to that assignment, and then they can see their specific assignment.
So our goal is by Monday to have a skeleton of the week on LMS. The purpose for that is if your child should happen to not have COVID, but have a fever, like let's say they're 101.9, and they actually have to go home, they can just get on the LMS and see what's happening for that day. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to be ahead of the game, knowing that, man, our kids get colds all the time. Our kids get viruses. They're kids. That's what their immune system does. It builds an immunity. We want to build an immunity. Doesn't mean we have COVID, but with that said, even if they did have COVID, it's okay, we're ready. They can still do school at home for 2 weeks. No worries, no stress, like we're on top of it. So on Monday, our plan is to have most of our assignments for the week on the LMS. Am I going to detail everything that I do? No, but I am going to put the instructional video that I recorded because your child's gone. So it'll be a like a Teams link. It'll be a video. I'll put it on the subject, but I'll do my darndest to get assignments on there. This is just our entry task that we do. So I wanted to throw that on there just because I'm trying to get into the habit. So this is for your information. It's a great information, a communication tool. This is going to be kind of your kids' go-to if they forget what they need to do for homework that night. And then, of course, if they're absent. Okay? Because we really are taking this very seriously, just being prepared for whatever comes, whatever happens. We are very confident and very hopeful that we will never have to go back to remote learning again. But if the unforeseen should happen, which we've all been there, we're a step ahead. I guess what I'm going to say at this point is, if you have questions about LMS, talk to me afterward, and I'd love to help you. Really, it's about your kids knowing how to use LMS, and again, I'll retrain them tomorrow, and then have them show you over the weekend. I think that might be a good move. Let's put that on them to have them train mom and dad, okay? But if you have any anxiety at all about any of the tech that we're using, just come see me, because I'd love to talk through it with you and just try to alleviate any concerns that you have.
One thing about so much tech, though, is I think that we're shortchanging handwriting,
Oh, yeah,
and we're also, kids are using spell check.
yeah.
So they're not fundamentally learning words, and they're not practicing their handwriting.
Yeah.
So what do you do to offset that?
Beautiful, excellent, I'm glad you asked that question. I had that giggles in the middle up. You saw that entry task assignment. Here's what that is. Handwriting practice, grammar correction practice, spelling practice. What I'm doing is, first thing when your kids come into class, they're getting out their old-fashioned notebooks, and there's a vocabulary word, they're writing the definition, they're looking it up. Yes, they are using dictionary.com sometimes, but right now they're using the old-fashioned dictionaries, which is fun. I have a sentence that they have to write in their notebook, and they have to find the grammar, the things that are incorrect, so they're doing grammar correction. And then I have a writing prompt. The first 3 weeks of school, every day I have a writing prompt. Now, one of the main reasons is penmanship. I tell the kids, you guys, we're getting to this place where you're starting to type everything, but I need you to really, you've got to have some, you've got to be legible. So let me see you write your stories. So they're writing about a 7 to 15 sentence short story about a silly writing prompt. Today was about something like a backpack that was clumsy, and they come up with great things because, you know, narratives are easy for the kids to write. And then in about 4 weeks, after we have a good collection, they'll pick their best one, and we'll use that as our first narrative writing instruction of story structure. So I'm totally aligned with you on that, and I'm doing my best to try to get them handwriting practice, spelling practice. I don't have spelling lists in 6th grade, I do have vocabulary lists. So accountability for knowing how to spell those words, that's important. But you are absolutely right, that starts to go away as you get towards middle school and high school. So I'm trying to bridge the
I
gap.
just don't know if they're getting enough practice.
I hear you. Yeah, I hear you.
The papers, the
Yeah.
two papers that we write in my class, they will be writing the rough draft, and writing the rough draft with the idea, again, what Mrs. Allen was talking about, is it's not just for them to be able to read, it's to make sure that others can read. We talk about great scientists, and sometimes we can't understand their journals because their handwriting is so bad. And so there is a lot of that practice still. And we have this epiphany a couple years ago when we really pushed towards this tech. We're understanding that this is where our world is going in the tech, and yet we didn't want to jump in so much that everything's done on the computer. So there's a ton of handoff projects. Mrs. Allen had this great idea that we now have a STEM cart that rolls around the entire middle school. And each of the teachers are expected to do at least 2 STEM or STEAM projects in the midst of their regular classes that they're teaching. So whether it's history or science or English or Bible. And so I have some great artifacts that students have done over the last couple of years. We bring in a cart, and there's almost every tool you can think of and almost every little trinket you can come up with. I have a Sphinx in my room that is just pieces of cut up wood that was stacked in just the right way and covered with aluminum and painted. I've got some great things that the kids do with this STEAM part. And so it's not just setting a computer all day. It's getting hands-on, getting involved. The Apple and Island that the kids were doing, I walked into Mrs. Allen's class today for a second and watched what they're doing, and they're just in there, hands-on, creating things. And we are continuing to take notes with that writing, purposing to practice that writing so that it isn't just getting on your phone and expecting spell check to take care of everything for you.
Yeah.
Does that help you with your confidence this year?
No, good.
Okay.
I look at that calendar with all the color things, and it just makes me think of my own work. How soon do we want to get them gathered up like they're?
Right.
Yeah.
I fear that
Yeah. And I think that's a legitimate fear.
It almost, because I look at at some point, you know,
Yeah,
my work, and I go cross-eyed, I should actually try to keep my calendar as clear as possible.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's attention, definitely attention. I've noticed that the kids are coming to me more fluent with their typing skills, which is great. So then I would say to you as parents, maybe your focus becomes more on giving them opportunities for penmanship at home. So maybe there is an emphasis where you're mindful of that, of, okay, how can I have them make lists? How can I have them write a letter to somebody? That's a lost art, writing a letter to somebody. What? Yeah, so I would say, just do that. Like if you can think, how can I get the penmanship? Make sure. So you know what I'm saying? Because it's a partnership. If you see areas of things that we're not doing that you wish we were, then yeah, step in and step things up for your kids that they have to do at home. Yeah, you guys are spending more time with them than we do, for certain. Is Daniel's mom here? Talk about great penmanship.
Oh my goodness.
Holy cow! Yeah, Daniel, he's new, and I just want to say, man, the first day I walked by, I'm like, dude, your penmanship's phenomenal.
They don't teach it in school, so we taught himself.
He taught himself.
Yeah.
Well, he's pretty meticulous anyhow.
Yeah.
It's like he's so detailed. Yeah, great. Our new students are awesome. You guys, hopefully you get to meet some of the new parents and our new students, but man, they're such a great addition. I appreciated that about him. I tell him every day, actually. Great penmanship. Better than mine. Okay, homework.
Homework. Again, there's going to be a lot that's done in class. If your child comes home and says he or she does not have a ton of homework that day, that's okay. But if you know your child will be a procrastinator, that's where it might help to get on that calendar and just double check. Okay, we're going to have a memory verse that's, the quiz is taken every Friday. And I got kids that come in and they'll just say, I'm going to look at it Thursday night. And then Thursday night comes and they got something else and they're not able to get to it. So really helping our kids to look, and this is where that calendar comes in handy, is they are able to look and say, okay, I may not have anything due tomorrow, but I've got these 3 or 4 things that are due at the end of the week, and I can be working on them on a regular basis. We're not looking, if your kid is struggling, your child's having way more than 60 minutes, if it's a specific subject, please talk to us. Let us know, because we need to know that the struggle is real at home. And if we are noticing that they are working diligently in class and still having a ton of homework, then we need to figure out how to differentiate for them and help to come alongside them. Yes?
Are you guys talking about what assignments are due, when they're due, things like that, or are we relying on the calendars only?
Oh no, your students know all the time what's going on. We have, in both of our rooms, up on our whiteboard, we have the week at a glance written down.
So there's no surprise then?
It shouldn't be.
Right.
We were able to give each of your kids their own small personal little planner, because we do have kids that love that planner still, and they'll pop it out at the end of each class and make sure that they're filling that out. And so it's discussed all the time. It's not that we say there's an assignment on LMS, go find it. It's we're working through it, this is what's due, make sure that you're keeping track of it. But it is more of just, I know there's something due, I want to make sure I get the right numbers on my math assignment, or I want to make sure I have the instructions right, and that's where they can go to the LMS to follow up to make sure that that brief description and they understand it. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you guys having them turn stuff in simply in their one notebooks, or are they submitting things via the LMS? Like,
Yeah, no submissions via LMS for me.
That's what I was going
Because I just put, it's either going to be a paper or it's going to be in there. I've distributed into their notebook, yes, and they're working right in it. Yeah. Yeah.
Just because we reference Wednesdays, so is there a way, like, do my kids have to go every Wednesday? Like, you sign up to go every Wednesday, or can it be a fluid thing, and then do I contact the teacher, what's that scenario?
Good
Because I haven't
question.
seen anything of that, and if you're gonna
Yeah.
have to later, then just ignore it and just keep going.
No, I love that you asked that question. That's it, because I really want to make sure that's clear to you. It can be fluid. My thinking is that if your child needs additional help, bring them on a Wednesday. Because I'm going to have a couple kids in my classroom, and I can spend one-on-one time that I never get on a given day when I have all 36. We have all 36. So if you decide, hey, most Wednesdays they're going to be home, they're checking the LMS, they're doing their work, but I want you to go in today. It's 10:20 to 2:50, okay? Kid just shows up, they come to class, and they'll change classes just like they normally would. So they'll begin with me, block 1 if they start with me. They'll go to math, they'll go to block 2, they'll go to elective, and they'll go to music or PE. So they would hit all 7 periods in that given day on Wednesday. They'll be just short periods. Okay, any other questions about that remote Wednesday?
So we don't have to let you know, just show them up or not?
Yes. Yes, that's total, is that okay with you?
Yeah,
Okay.
and they're supervised the whole time. We're not just lock them in a room and
No.
we see in a couple hours and get
Yeah.
the work done and come back and hope that everything's okay.
Much of the rationale behind the remote Wednesday was that we knew there were going to be kids that needed extra help to catch up on things from last spring that they didn't get. So that's, and especially for math. So that's kind of the intention of it. It's giving us that time, that space. I think it's going to be a good thing. I think it's going to be good for the kids. Yes.
So is it, are there going to be like Zoom lessons, or what are the remote Wednesdays going to be?
Yes, good question. No Zoom lessons. There will be no new content introduced. It will be simply reinforcement. So I will have taught, so if there are things that typically I may have done, like if I had C work or anything that I would have done in class, I'll just assign it for that Wednesday. I'm not gonna, it's kind of nice because I can get more, I can move through more information. We can do more hands-on activities if I'm not having them show evidence of their work and saving that for Wednesday.
So if my kids are at home, what are they going to be doing?
They should be checking the LMS. They're going to have an assignment for each subject except their electives. We won't assign anything for electives. Probably nothing for music PE. So they're going to check their core classes, English, science, history, Bible, math. They will have an assignment. Typically, we'll get them in a habit. They'll know most of the things. I'll keep it as consistent as I can. For instance, they'll know every Wednesday they have UCLA articles to read, and they may be doing some annotation. They may be doing just a quiz. I'll try to keep that very concise so they know what they're doing. But they'll check the LMS. They'll essentially have a list of assignments to work through for that given day. I will have an open Zoom or Teams link. So if your child is struggling with anything, they just have to hop on that and I'm there and I'll be aware. So your child can be in contact with me at any time during that day for questions, but no new information introduced.
And we're not doing direct teaching over that team. That's what we were doing in the spring, where every morning they would be either in a Zoom class with Mrs. Allen or myself, and then we also had what we call office hours during the week. So Wednesdays is kind of going to be like that office hours, where there's a Teams meeting that's open, and we'll get a little jingle from our computer that one of your children has jumped on. We will come, sit down, we will start recording just to make sure that everything's above board with what we're doing during our meeting, and then we'll be able to discuss with them. Hey, Mr. Wilkinson, I have a question really quick on the math assignment on number 32. Or hey, this history assignment that we're doing, I had a quick question, can I ask you? So we are trying to make sure that the students that are here physically with us and the students that are home that are working on the homework that's already been assigned on Monday and Tuesday are getting that time to be able to ask us questions and we can follow up with them.
Yeah. The kids that are here will be doing the same things that the kids at home will be doing.
So what should be my expectation of my child who is at home? That they are logged onto the computer at 10:20 and are staying on it until 2:50?
No.
Or if my child did their homework on Monday night, Tuesday night, they're tracking right along, they have nothing to do on Wednesday?
Well, really, my thinking was that I would be posting things for Wednesday on Tuesday night because I don't want your child sitting at home watching TV.
Neither do I.
And
Or
I,
working too far in advance, trying to get it done
right.
ahead of time.
I also
So
don't,
are they gonna put in 5 hours a day on Wednesdays?
I don't know if it's going to take them 5 hours a day. I don't think it will. But I also don't want you to feel chained to the computer screen or to the clock. So on that day, if you have an early riser and your kiddo wants to get going right away, let's go. Let's get it done by noon. Or if your kiddo wants to sleep in all that day, okay, they're going to be done by, they're going to work from 10 to 2, whatever.
Or if they're Mrs. Allen's homeroom and they don't have any questions for me, go out and have a great extended lunchtime. Or remind them where the vacuum is. Have them do a couple of chores. But again, the idea is this is a work at home day, and it really truly is each individual child's going to be working at their own pace. you may have a child that's a great reader, or they may not be a great reader. And so if there's 15 pages assigned or a chapter assigned, it may take one child longer to read than the other might. I may have a 2-day history assignment that I start on Tuesday, and then I give them the rest of that to be working on the next day. I haven't fully introduced it, and they know where we're going with it, but then they're gonna come Wednesday and find that this is the second half that I need to get done. Yep. Sorry.
So, I think I saw the schedule and it kind of looked like a half an hour for each subject, but I think what I'm hearing is more modules where they can go at their own pace.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that half hour will be where they can get in specifically,
Oh.
follow their schedule. That's when they can access us from home if they need to. Yeah. So if they start out in the morning, Mrs. Allen, that first hour or so is her English and science class. And so that's when her homeroom can get on. My homeroom at that same time would be able to access me, and then we flip that, just like a home day.
Yeah. I was gonna say, if your child is on campus, they will follow that schedule. They'll go to each class, so that's what I was saying, is they'll actually switch classes and teachers, just like they would normally. I also want to say that, for my class, my class is kind of a reading heavy class, but I also, with my kids who have unique learning needs, especially my dyslexic kids, I'm really big on auditory reading. Sometimes kids who even struggle with comprehension, I'll have them use auditory reading tools because we're just missing a lot of information. I try to shy away from that for anybody who's not dyslexic, but there are special occasions. I say that because in 6th grade they do a lot of reading. I always have a literature study going. So we're reading probably 4 chapters a week in a literature study. First one is Simon the Beaver, it's classic. So that's the piece where literature study day is always Thursday. Every Thursday, all their literature study work is due. So I assign it the first Thursday, it's due the next Thursday. So what I'm foreseeing is those that aren't really like avid readers and don't really do a great job planning, like I'm gonna read a chapter a night, they're probably gonna be doing a lot of reading on Wednesday because it's gonna be due Thursday and literature study questions. I'm not assigning it for Wednesday, it's assigned on Thursday due the next Thursday. But they may have put it off, maybe intentionally, because they knew they were gonna have time on that Wednesday. It's homework, but they're gonna do it on that Wednesday because they're home. So see, I'm kind of anticipating those kinds of things as well. That may be something they spend their time on.
And as well as we could plan for something new, we still don't know what Wednesday's gonna look like. We
Yeah.
haven't done this yet. And so the first couple of weeks, it might just be a thing of we're figuring out exactly what needs to be assigned. And if you feel that it's too much going on or not enough going on, please just email us and communicate with us via the email, and we can have that communication. But we're gonna kind of work this out, figure this out. It's been a couple of days of getting used to having to wipe down tables every time students leave and get up and go, and making sure that students are sitting in the exact same spot so we can have our contact tracing in case somebody does get sick. So there's just a lot of new things this year.
Yeah.
We're confident about everything else that we've been able to share because this is what we do, and this is what we've done. But the new is where we need that flexibility. And we'll be honest with the kids that we're gonna be flexible with them as well. We're gonna figure out how this Wednesday looks.
And if you feel on that Wednesday like your child does not have enough to do, I just would say as a partnership, please take the initiative to give them something. Like if you see something, you can see, hey, what we're working on, and maybe you can think of something cool that you can add. If it's penmanship practice, if it's writing a letter, you guys kind of got to be homeschool parents last spring. We're going to do our best to have as much engagement as possible on that Wednesday, remote learning. But if you're not happy with the amount of engagement on that Wednesday, feel free to communicate with us, but then also feel free to try to supplement with anything that you think would be really cool. I'm always a big fan. I mean, I know you guys are so busy, everybody's working, but man, if parents can get hands-on with their kids and start doing projects, it's awesome. Okay, we're really, I'm sorry, we're taking so long, you guys. I feel like we have so much to tell you. You're new to middle school, so everything's brand new, right, Mrs. Cordes? Mrs. Cordes has been around the block. Speaking of Mrs. Cordes, she's not new to the zoo. Mrs. Cordes, speaking of Mrs. Cordes, you will receive the middle school notebook from her weekly. That will be all information middle school. What's coming up for lunches, what's coming up for, I don't know, what, anything middle school related. fundraisers, all things middle school. Personally, Mr. Wilkinson and I do, our goal is to get an email out to you once a week, and he and I alternate. So every other week, we'll just send you out a quick, hey, here's what's up in 6th grade. We won't send one tomorrow because we're here with you tonight. You'll get your first one next Friday. Just sometimes we'll give you like a quick flyover. Here's what's on the horizon. Here's what's coming. Or if there's anything important that we need you to know, you'll get an email from us. So weekly, we try to communicate with you. LMS, we write homework also on the black whiteboard, as Mr. Wilkinson said. Student issues?
We don't have any student issues in 6th grade, so you can just disregard the bottom line. No.
They're perfect angels.
Yeah, we do have a system. The big thing here at Northwest is we just try to talk to kids and get them into the routine of how to take care of issues. If they have an issue with one another, we're going to make sure that they're communicating with one another. We're going to pull both parties in. We're going to communicate. We're going to talk.